Beautiful souls. Today I wanted to talk to you about iconography and the science of iconography, which is um, it's an approach, I would say, more than a science, and an approach that is interested in studying the symbolism, if you want, of representation, and mostly visual representation. Why do I want to talk to you about iconography today is because this has been part of my training, academic training. Actually, I had, just to give you a little bit of feedback, not feedback, but like a little bit of background, sorry, of my journey into this study of iconography. When I finished my plastic art studies in here in Quebec, I was at the time very fascinated by the study of mythology and the work of Joseph Campbell. I don't know if some of you know Joseph Campbell, but he's a very fascinating man and scholar, and so knowledgeable about world mythology. It's incredible, and his work and his personality always had very much had a big impact on me. So after I finished, I was young. I was in my early 20s when I finished my art school, if you want, or what we call here plastic arts. I decided to study anthropology in order to focus on mythology. That was my thing at the time. It's interesting how life brings us into these different series of discoveries and makes us travel in a way. So I started my anthropology studies at the BA level, and I found it very interesting. However, rapidly I was really getting involved and interested in archaeology rather than anthropology for some reason. And as you probably know, archaeology is more the study of humans through their remains, if you want, rather than ethnology, which is the study of humans that are alive presently and where you actually study them live, So I think that was also something that was interesting to me, because as a kid, I was raised by development people who were doing development. My parents were doing development and in different countries, and I had the opportunity to be in contact with really fascinating cultures, maybe in Mexico, in Peru, in Africa, and these cultures often had these very spiritual and archaeological rich civilizations, So I grew up with these amazing cultures and cultural remains. So that probably tinted my comfort zone, when I arrived in anthropology. Rapidly, I focused on archaeological studies, which were more interesting to me. But the thing is that I did not decide to focus on archaeology in terms of being a real terrain archaeologist. I studied mostly archaeology theoretically, if you want, and my subject of interest were more between archaeology and art history, in a way, ancient art history and antiquity. And so basically, the point of this little video is not just to give you all my background, but just for you to understand where I'm getting at with this iconography thing, is that rapidly I also decided to work on Egyptian material. So I'm not an Egyptologist per se, in the sense that it's not like I don't have like this, like European or even North American training as a Egyptologist, where you learn all the language and everything. My study were more related to Egyptian art, so I was, in between sort of domains, between art history, between archaeology, between anthropology, between Egyptology, and I was kind of swimming, all these different pools, if you want. And so that led me to do a master's in which focused on the iconography, so the study of the representation or symbolic representations of dance in ancient Egyptian tombs, mostly of the period we call the New Kingdom. And that was very fascinating because I had also a training in classical ballet, professional training when I was younger. So I've always resonated very much with dance. So to me, it was just logical to study dance in ancient Egypt, which was a society which was already fascinating me. And it was combining three of my interests: dance, ancient Egypt, and iconography. So that was an interesting study to do. And if you guys are interested, my master's thesis is available in my boutique, but also on my website. If there's something you'd like to have a look at, if these topics interest you. Then after that, I finished my academic career, if you want, by with a doctorate, with a PhD in the study of the iconographic representations on certain particular ceramics. They're called marsh bowls. It's a type of ceramics of a blue color. That's not a surprise. Obviously, now if you've been listening to my videos, now you know that I'm totally obsessed by the color blue. So yeah, so I did this study of these specific ceramics which were used in context of tombs, again in order to serve in the afterworld to the owners of the tomb as a way to celebrate the rituals related to rebirth and fertility and things like that, which are related to the divinity Hathor, the cow deity. I don't know if you ever heard or seen that particular deity. So again, I was in the area of Egypt, studying the representations in tombs and material in tombs, and the whole purpose of this material in the rebirth process and the fertility process of these people who actually had died but wished to be reborn in the afterworld. So that was the purpose of all the iconography and imagery relating to rebirth and that. So again, my PhD is also something that you can have a look at if you're interested in on my website, either in the iconography section of my website, where under the writing section tab, you have an iconography section. In there, I shared all the different articles I wrote on these subjects and the different presentations I did. And yeah, so if this is something that speaks to you or resonates with you, you can always have a look at that. This is just for your personal interest. But the reason why I wanted to talk specifically about iconography is because it is a very fascinating approach. It was brought by a scholar named Panofsky, and it is, if you look at it, it is a way of understanding how we use visual representations. I mean, we don't use just visual representation, but in the case of iconography, it's the study of the symbolism of visual representations and how we use these visual representations to not only translate the realities of our world, but also in what we wish to create. And that was very, very interesting in the context of ancient Egypt. Because, and the more I think about this, I'm now, just to give you a short background, I stopped my academic career in 2011 when I finished with my doctorate, and I didn't wish to pursue my career in the academic world, in research or in teaching or whatever. I decided to instead concentrate on my creative endeavors. which I've been doing since on the, at the beginning more like a half-time thing, and now I'm doing it full-time since 2018 as a freelance or self-employed creator. So that just gives you the feedback. But my reflections or my thinking about the iconography has never really stopped. It's always something that has that I've been fascinated with during my studies and even after that, because the ancient Egyptians used their script and their drawings or their iconographical representation, and they actually view them as the same thing. For them, writing, because Egyptian writing is well, there's three different types of scripts, but the hieroglyphs represent different forms, motifs, which represent actual things. Plumes, serpents, and things like that. So in a way, their writing is not so far from their drawing or their iconographical representation. Sorry, my English is not so good. So the reason why I'm saying that is that because for the ancient Egyptian, which was interesting, is that iconography, as well as writing, was a way to create within reality the things that were actually drawn. So it was a kind of a magical process in a way, in which the way if you actually were drawing specific figures or concepts or things or events on your tomb's walls, for example, if you're a person from the elite and you had money to have like this beautifully decorated tomb in the New Kingdom, for example, well, then on these tomb walls, you could represent, I don't know, beautiful ladies dancing for you, or banquets, or the divinity of rebirth or birth and fertility, such as Hathor, as blessing you with things. And so the whole purpose of that was to actually create through a sort of a magical process the reality which you draw or had people drawn for you. And the obvious purpose of, in that case, was to actually be reborn in the afterworld and be able to have banquets and beautiful ladies singing and dancing for you, and having your family around you, and having a richness and beautiful domain with, So that was the purpose, representing all these things. And that has been quite useful for archaeologists and Egyptologists, because through these representations, which were actually sort of wishful thinking in a way for these elite people to bring back with them in the afterworld, was a way for us to also understand how they were doing things, because these scenes were very, very intricate and very precise as to how things were done. And you would have like how they made bread and how they hunted animals. And so this way everything is very, very clear in terms of processes and how things were done. So that's really interesting also to understand that society. But again, to go back to the actual reason of why I'm talking about this topic, is that iconography then for ancient Egyptians was mostly to not only be a form of propaganda, also politically, which it's not something we're immune to in our modern societies either, but also again it was used by individuals in order to magically sort of create in their reality or their coming reality something they wanted to take place. And so when you study this, you tend to think, oh, this is like a way, like not a primitive, I don't like that word, but it was is it the way people thought in the past? That was a way of doing things in the past. We don't do that now. We don't believe in magic and all. We're scientific people now. We think beyond that, and you rapidly realize that this is totally untrue, because even in our societies, even today, we use a lot representation and iconography as a way to magically make things happen in our life, or present something in our life, and hoping this will actually be true and happen in reality. And so that was sort of my since I finished my studies, I was really interested by this reflection of how really iconography is really part of our world. It's like part of human nature, basically, to try to make things happen through its representation in a sort of magical process. And I find that you can see this in not only, for example, in social media, you know, the way people will photograph, you know, things they do in the most ideal sort of setting, and in order for people to actually believe that, you know, their life is actually the way they represent it iconographically or symbolically through their social medias. You know, you see a bunch of people saying how, you know, oh, look at this beautiful meal I did, you know, and it's all beautiful and very aesthetically presented, and how my life is wonderful and everything. And often when you actually know these people, you know from behind the scenes that things are not that wonderful or not that ideal. And you realize then how the human nature sort of needs to create that beautiful sort of idyllic representation of what they'd like to have in order to sort of make themselves believe, or at least make other people believe, that, you know, this is their life and that's what they're aiming at. Or, you know, so I thought that this reflection was kind of interesting in terms of, you know, what we live in our sort of actual society right now in our present times. But I thought it was interesting also to relate it to the creative process, because you know, it is also something you find when you create different through different media. I will give you a personal example. I've realized that writing for me is a way to sort of create a certain reality. When, for example, I'm writing my novel, which is my novel Blue, which, you know, I will talk more about at some point because it will soon be published. But, you know, it is a process I've been working on for, it's a book I've been working on for many years now, and a few years now. And I find it so interesting to realize that when you're actually putting all your soul into describing something very realistically in terms of words, you know, when you describe a scene, when you describe a moment, when you describe a reality within a scene of a novel or film or whatever media you're using, you're trying to make this thing so real that you actually believe it in a way. You know, it's not like you're lost between reality and fiction. It's just that in the actual process of it, when you're, you know, with your pen in hand or on your computer, you're so focused on this scene and on these things that you actually feel like you're traveling there, that you are there, that you're creating this reality. And I find that this is, in fact, not very different from what the ancient Egyptians and other societies um, have tried to pursue in their representation in tombs or in other things, in the sense that they were trying to make a fiction or potential reality real into their present life or in their future life. So I find that iconography is not just like a science studying symbolism and symbolic representation in a very just a theoretical way. I find that it's a very interesting way to understand human nature and to understand the processes in which, well, the processes we use to sort of make our reality come true, or try to, yeah, to make things happen in our reality. And that, I just found that really interesting, and I wanted to share a bit of that with you, and also a bit of my background in iconography, because some people know that, you know, I've been creating for a few years, and but not necessarily aware that I had a previous life. I mean, I've had previous lives. I had a previous life as a ballet dancer. I had a previous life as a creator in terms of drawing and sculpting and things. I had a previous life as a scholar in a way, or at least in the academic world and research. So my life is always very interesting, and I'm never bored. That's what I mean by that. I'm not saying I'm interesting. I'm saying that I'm living a life that's very stimulating to me, and I'm so curious, and I always love to learn a lot. So I'm never bored. I always love to jump from one career to another, from one subject of interest to another, or one media to another, or whatever. So yeah, so that was what I wanted to share with you today. Just a little bit of my things I've learned in about iconography and its study, which is very, very interesting. So I wish you a very good day, and see you soon. Bye.